Hi, I'm Amanda Morrell with interest.co.nz. I'm here today with one of our double shot interviews, and I've got with me Milton Jennings. He's the CEO of Fidelity Life. Welcome, Milton.
Thank you.
Milton, you've made the news for a couple of reasons recently. One relates to this great performance. One of your funds, the Options Kiwi Fund, has put in FundSource, named it the top performing fund.
Yep.
I guess you've averaged an annual return of 11.59% over the past 3 years.
Yes. That's
quite shocking or dramatic, I guess, compared to what default funds have done, and they've been sort of regarded as the darling, having done 4.1%, I think, on average over the last 3 years. How have you been able to achieve that stellar level of performance?
Yes, it was quite a pleasing result for us. We'd run a similar fund for probably 2 to 3 years before that. We called it our options portfolio before we introduced it to KiwiSaver. So we'd found out through that period that this investment strategy worked very well. We sell options on the US 10-year government bonds, and we use Tyndall asset management to manage that for us, and we just found that the strategy worked very well. We almost had the returns of an equity fund with the volatility of a fixed interest fund. So when KiwiSaver came along, we decided to introduce this investment choice, and the returns, even through the global financial crisis, have been very good, very consistent. So there is a bit of volatility per month. You'll find that we tend to get a couple of negative months per year, but then it recovers very quickly. So the strategy is very sound. I've got all my KiwiSaver funds in the options portfolio, and most of the senior managers at Fidelity Life are the same, because we firmly believe in it. And as a long-term sort of strategy, it works very well. It's like being in growth assets or into equity.
Yeah, some people may be confused because normally they would associate a cash-based fund with being a conservative fund, but this is actually on the high end of the risk chart because of the options component.
That's right.
Yeah. So who would this fund be best suited to, keeping in mind time frames or time horizons for retirement, etc.?
Yeah, a normal person would invest maybe 15-20% of their assets into the options. So if you've got assets elsewhere, you can afford to put 100% of your investment in there. But if it's critical that your only savings when you get to retirement is your KiwiSaver fund, then don't put 100% into options, because it is high risk. And we recommend around the 20% of your total assets could go into an options type portfolio.
Is it quite common that people who are choosing you as a provider actually splitting their assets among the different funds, or is that possible?
Yes, definitely. Most people tend to do that. So they'll take a little bit of options, they'll take a bit of balanced, they might take a bit of ethical. Yes, so we've got sort of 9 investment choices, so they can take 4 of any of those 9.
Yeah, and is that more costly in terms of fees, or
No.
do you?
No, exactly the same.
Yeah.
So you can be in 1 fund or 4 funds. The fees are exactly the same.
Okay. There's a lot of confusion, I think, among new KiwiSavers, especially in those new to the investment sphere altogether, about where to put your money and risk appetite and whatnot.
Yep.
When they come to Fidelity, what kind of guidance are they given in terms of how well advised are they about where they're putting their money and into what fund?
Yeah, well, we only deal through independent advisors.
Okay, so the advisors.
The advisor will give them some financial advice. They've got a risk analysis tool that they can use, so they can go through, do the survey, and it'll tell them basically what risk profile they've got and a fund recommendation. Or they can just go on to sorted.co.nz. They've got tools there as well where they can do their risk analysis and determine which fund to go into. But if they do have any doubts, then check with a financial advisor or check with a provider.
Okay. The other reason you've made the news recently is that an expression of interest in a potential stake in Tower if the company gets broken up.
Yeah.
It's their KiwiSaver accounts that you're specifically interested in?
Probably the life side of the business is probably our number one target. Our main specialty is life insurance. If there was an opportunity to buy the life division, we'd be certainly keen to have a look at that. And also the KiwiSaver, given that Tower's a default provider, that's quite a valuable asset. So if there was an opportunity for us, we'd certainly have a look at that.
Okay, what would be some of the obstacles to that? Is it just regulatory hurdles at this point, or?
It's probably around the whole structure of Tower, and you've only really got GPG, who own 35%, who are looking to sell their stake. So the other 65% haven't indicated they will want to sell. So there's certainly a lot of hurdles in terms of the structure to get over for us to even be able to go and buy that life division. So we're just waiting. I understand Tower are not rushing the process, so we'll just see what comes down the track. We're certainly not making any commitment at this stage. It's just wait and see for us at this stage. But we've always been looking for acquisitions. We purchased a couple of companies, Lumley Life and Farmers Mutual Life, over the last 5 or 6 years, and we'd just like to get some more acquisitions if we could, to go with our very good organic growth.
Okay. Well, just getting back to KiwiSaver for a bit, you were here to talk to us about some considerations facing the 30 to 50-year-old demographic, and I appreciate there's a huge spectrum in there and a lot of different scenarios facing people, but predominantly in those age, and during that time frame, you're facing a lot of financial responsibility in your life, raising families, mortgages, that kind of thing. With all those day-to-day expenses and the cost of living going up and everything, people are really hard pressed, I think, to set aside savings and are questioning whether they should be saving for retirement or maybe focusing on, reducing their debt. What kind of advice would you have, if any, where people are kind of mulling over, choosing between their retirement savings and just paying down the mortgage?
I'm always a firm believer that savings is a habit, and the earlier you get into a savings habit, the better. And even if you're only putting 2% of your income away, it's not a great amount, and I think you should start as soon as you can. I think if we look back, our parents were good savers, very good savers. We're probably average. Our kids are hopeless, because there just hasn't been that savings culture, and I think that's why KiwiSaver is a fantastic product for this country, who's got high personal debt levels that we shouldn't have, probably some of the worst in the world. We've got to get into a savings culture, and it's got to start with our kids. And KiwiSaver is a fantastic vehicle that basically the government has put in place. It's a great partnership between the financial sector and the government, and it's a cost-effective vehicle, and there's good security around the assets as well.
Mm-hmm. There's a fair bit of criticism, though, and skepticism out there, I would argue, at least gauging by some of the comments we get on our website. One of our commentators had suggested that there's really no point or little point to saving when you factored in fees and taxes and inflation, that a lot of these projections are highly exaggerated, that at the end of the day you end up with an inconsequential amount of money. Is that fair criticism?
I think that's very unfair. What the government done, all fees through KiwiSaver are approved by the government actuary, so there's certainly restrictions on what you can charge as fees. And the government is looking at the taxation on the investment income, and one of the recommendations out of the Savings Working Group was to lower that tax. So, No, I don't believe that at all. As I say, we need to get into a savings habit, and this is a very good savings vehicle, and it's cost effective when you look at other savings vehicles around the market. So, we've got a couple of members who've got over 150,000 in their accounts already after 3 or 4 years. So it's amazing how quickly it builds up. And as long as you're not looking at the balance every week, you'd be quite surprised if you look at it on an annual basis at how these funds grow, and particularly when they're coming out of your salary before you see it in your bank account. I think people will be very surprised at how these build up quite nicely, particularly with compound interest happening all the time.
Yeah, there's obviously a huge variance in the type of returns that are being generated among the different funds out there on the market as well.
Yes.
But even some of your non-KiwiSaver funds, you mentioned one previously, have done quite well.
Yep.
I think it was 11.55%, and that was after tax as well.
That's right.
So what's the advantage of actually going with a KiwiSaver when potentially you could have more flexibility? That was another kind of the criticism, that you have more flexibility if you just invest your money with something that's not locked up.
Yeah, well, the advantage of KiwiSaver is a low-cost vehicle, and some of the other vehicles around the market are higher cost than that. I think that's an individual choice. Obviously, you should put the minimum into KiwiSaver to get all the tax benefits that there is. That you should do that as a minimum, but if you can do more than that, then you've still got a very good cost-effective vehicle to use. But if you want to basically pull money out before retirement years, then maybe you need another vehicle alongside it to invest in as well, so to meet your sort of medium-term goals.
Yeah. Some have argued that beyond putting in your 2% or whatever is required to get the tax credit, that there's actually no more benefit to putting in the extra 4 or 8 if you wanted to. Where does it make sense for somebody to maybe top up if they're able to, or just scale back in terms of their contribution?
There is some argument to that just put in the minimum into KiwiSaver and then have the flexibility to put it into another investment, but it's just having the discipline to do that. And KiwiSaver is a great vehicle, and it's locked into 65, and it protects you from yourself, so you can't go in and take that money out and use it for a holiday or something like that. So I would say everyone should be planning for their retirement, and KiwiSaver is a great vehicle to do that, and it protects you from yourself.
Within your scheme, do you have an option to self-manage? I'd read that in Australia, something like 1/3 of the funds are self-managed. I don't know if that's anywhere accurate.
No, there's no ability of that in the New Zealand KiwiSaver.
Do you think it's a good idea?
I haven't really looked at it in detail. I know it's quite successful in Australia, but I haven't had a look at it in detail to make much comment on that, really.
Okay. Going back to our demographic again, the older you get, tracking towards 50, your financial considerations are going to shift, I think, quite a bit. Kids might be leaving home. You've got more disposable income at your ready. At that stage, should you be looking at sort of pumping up your exposure to growth, or scaling back, or does it just really depend on your circumstances?
Modern theory is probably start scaling back your risk profile. Certainly in your 30s and 40s you should have a high sort of risk profile and be putting a lot of your investment into the growth assets, the equity and mortgages. And then as you go through the 50s, they would say, then you start reducing your risk profile, go into a more sort of balanced fund where you've probably got 50-50 growth assets and 50% income assets, and then probably into your 60s, then you're back into the conservative type investments, so you're protecting the capital that you built up all over those years. Because if you get a global credit crisis when you're 62 or 63, you don't want to see a 20-30% drop in your balance. So most people would say that in those ages you probably start going down to a more conservative type portfolio.
Okay. You mentioned too that there's a bit more insecurity cropping up the older you get and wanting to have access to those funds. But just generally speaking around the KiwiSaver space, there are some general fears about how secure is your funds. Will it be there for you to access at age 65?
Yep.
You mentioned just before we came on camera about KiwiSaver being very distinctly unique from finance companies. What added measures or protections around it are there?
Well, they're all in trust. So all the KiwiSaver funds are in trust. They're managed by independent trustees. So, as an example, at Fidelity Life, we use Guardian Trust. So they do all the transactions involving KiwiSaver. They're basically approved by those. We do the administration, and they approve all their transactions. So the government was very careful to make sure that, you know, because they promoted this scheme, that there was security around the funds. And KiwiSaver funds can't go out and basically start borrowing money and leveraging up, etc. So I would say you can't really compare any finance company with any KiwiSaver. It's funds locked in a trust and protected by independent trustees. So completely different from a finance company structure where basically the managers have a power to invest wherever they like and into developers and stuff, into those high risk type areas. So we don't see that in KiwiSaver. So people's money is basically protected by that trust structure, which is pretty strong.
Okay. I guess the level of fear just speaks to the general mistrust that exists out in the public, and it was pretty badly damaged with their experience there. With the new regulatory regime coming in, a lot of these key changes are going to take effect in July. Are you expecting that may restore a bit of public faith in the financial management sector?
Oh, for sure. I think the licensing of financial advisors is a very positive move. I think it'll raise the professionalism of the whole industry, and it'll raise the respect that those advisors have got out there in the market. It's taken, the whole industry's taken a bit of a hammering with the financial advisors, the finance companies, and there's also been a number of funds that have closed up, and so we need to get the confidence back of the public.
Okay. Any ways to achieve that? Any suggestions there? Or?
Well, it's all about building trust again, and basically doing what you say you're going to do in terms of, you know, how this fund's going to return. Doing what you say you'll do is the way to build that trust up.
Okay, great. All right. Was there anything else that you wanted to add, or that we didn't maybe skipped? I know there's probably a lot of information to cover with that demographic again, but.
Yeah, I think the key thing with KiwiSaver, it's a long-term investment, and it's important that people are not looking at their balances, you know, every week and trying to pick managers and switching from manager to manager, because usually you find that this year's winners, next year's losers. So if you are choosing a provider, make sure you got someone who's got a long-term track record. Make sure the personnel that made that track record are still with that manager, and don't go switching regularly. It's important to stay with a manager and make sure that they perform.
Okay, excellent. Thanks for joining us, Milton Jennings. I'm Amanda Morrell with interest.co.nz, and this has been another one of our double shot interviews.